Welcome, everyone. And we're here to talk about humanitarian aid at the intersection of blockchain technology, where the unprecedented level of trust and transparency that blockchain enables has provided a level of end-to-end visibility to fund flows, while at the same time ensuring privacy and security. This can revolutionize humanitarian aid operations. The ability to trace funds from donor to final beneficiary at the point of disbursement, especially at the last mile, reduces gaps where information asymmetries on the status of payments can be exploited otherwise, and corruption can occur at a local level or at any point during the flow of funds. Moreover, donors can see exactly where their funds are sent, the percentage that is allocated to operations, for example, as opposed to the percentage of funds that go directly to the final beneficiaries, and the impact of the funds that are deployed. We can gather statistics and data. So ultimately, by proving and providing increased trust in systems, humanitarian efforts can provide assurance of the impact claims that organizations provide and knowledge that funds are allocated as intended, and the ability to monitor results. These innovations can go ultimately also beyond humanitarian aid and improve trust and security throughout a wide range of operations and economic activities. So we are joined here by representatives from a number of UN agencies, and it's for a discussion on the role that blockchain can play for humanitarian aid, the distribution of aid, and the transparency of operations and the tangible impact. So thank you so much for joining us. I'll leave it to each of you to introduce yourselves. So let's start with Bernard.
Well, thank you. My name is Bernard Kovac. I lead the Global Innovation Accelerator of the UN World Food Programme. So if you don't know the World Food Programme, wherever you hear in the news the UN is delivering food, that's typically the World Food Programme. Reaching about 160 million people in 120 countries and territories. So in my day job, if you want, and it's coming from the history of like using technology, startups, innovation for good, is like how can we infuse this in terms of like making our emergency response more efficient and effective, but also sustainably ending hunger. And we're actually right now running a total of 16 different social impact startup accelerators on ending hunger, emergency response, climate action, gender equality, different aspects with and for different partners. And blockchain and Web3 is one of the elements of technologies that we believe in that can be a game changer. So I'll leave it at that.
Gladys.
Well, hello, and first of all, thank you so much to Global Blockchain Business Council for the invitation. I'm Gladys Morales. I'm originally from Colombia, and I'm Senior Officer and Global Head of Innovation at the UN International Fund for Agricultural Development. For those of you that are not familiar with IFAD, that's how we call that's the acronym of our organization. We are both a UN agency and an international financial institution. So we are investors, and we are laser focused on investing in improving the lives of rural people. Our targets are also youth, women, climate, and indigenous people. Since 1978, we have provided grants and concessional loans for up to $23.7 billion. And since last year, in December, by approval of the board, we launched also the private sector financing program, which is also the reason why I'm here at the World Economic Forum. We have made a commitment to give, to collaborate with the private sector and invest $100 million and catalyze another $500 million in solutions that can help us facing the challenges that we have in rural development. As you probably know, and if you don't, I will tell you, at least 1/3 of the food that is produced and consumed in the world is produced by rural people by smallholder farmers. And in low-income countries, that number goes up to 70% of the food that is produced. And yet, those people are also suffering from poverty, hunger, and are the most affected by climate change. So that's why our laser focus is on investments in rural people. Thank you.
Carmen.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Carmen Head. I'm UNHCR's corporate treasurer. And we are obviously very busy because we have more than 140 million people forcibly displaced. So for these people, we are looking for solutions. We have heard before just how important digital ID is. And we are looking forward, obviously, to provide aid assistance the most efficient, effective way. And that's how I got motivated using blockchain for disbursements. And in this way, we have actually our first use case that we will talk about in Ukraine.
That's fantastic. Well, thanks again, all of you. And I will go again and ask each of you a question. What has been your journey into the space at the intersection of blockchain technology? You've each explained a little bit about your respective organizations. What brought you into the world of blockchain in what you do? And let's start with Bernard.
Interesting question, and I think this is an aspect of like how can we be most effective and efficient in like emergency response. This was one of the things that we first started. Actually, we had in our accelerator program, one of our staff members, he came up with the idea like, why don't we use blockchain to deliver cash to people, right? So he participated in our program, and then out of that, he developed something that's called building blocks, like which is a a digital wallet at first, but now it's also being used for coordinating aid transfers. But by now, we are using that in multiple aspects, like digitizing farm-to-fork transactions for smallholder farmers, making smart contract payouts with a startup that's actually like on parametric insurance, so weather-related index insurance. You can automatically pay out to smallholder farmers when doing that. But like I think the use cases that we're actually talking about for us are it's less about like typically people talk about like crypto and like all of that. Just for us, it's like the applicability and like helping people, right? Like and what helps us most using technology, using new business models, using the best we can. That's probably what we're doing, and like I think in a lot of those cases where it's also an aspect of how can you bring together the worlds of like knowing what's the reality on the ground, working with people, as well as like cutting edge technology, working with partners, getting support, and so on and so forth.
Gladys.
Thank you. Thank you. In our case, we started the journey by first doing knowledge sharing, knowledge management, and understanding who could be the best partners and best use cases for IFAD. So as a financial institution, we also have a responsibility to report on the funding that we provide to governments, but also to the companies in the private sector that we work with. We do impact assessment reports every year on all of IFAD's operations. So, but at the same time, it was also a big objective of the organization to understand how blockchain and other frontier technologies could collaborate to increase transparency, accountability, and our reporting methods. So I would say that we started by doing that, by doing knowledge sharing and understanding what the ecosystem was doing and who could be the best partners for our investment initiatives. And following that, as you might have, for those of you that were here in Davos last year, one of my colleagues, we launched Trace for payments of IFADs and running these pilots that we're testing to be able to verify IFADs payments and where the money goes and how much of that is really reaching smallholders. Not only based on other frontier technologies that we are also using for ensuring that we are evaluating and monitoring targeting, like geospatial technology. We use geospatial technology in our researched impact assessments. And now recently, after doing this assessment of the market, we considered that one of the best partners for us for our aim to develop digital public infrastructures was the Inter-American Development Bank with their LagChain platform. LagChain is already reaching more than 8 million people. and they have been ISO approved. They have aligned with ISO. So we have seen the impact that the blockchain has already proven to deliver in Latin America, and that's our next frontier. That's where our investments will be going into developing not only agro Web3, but also creating that network, not only Latin America, but globally, where IFAD operates, we're global. So replicating the success of blockchain in Latin America and bringing that to Africa and also to Asia.
And Carmen, what has been your journey into the blockchain space?
Yeah, so our journey is now 1 year old. So 1 year ago, we launched our first blockchain implementation for disbursements into Ukraine. And in that respect, we are already working with private sector. So we're working with Stellar Blockchain, and we are working with Circle. So we have a fully implemented use case into Ukraine, whereby we're using blockchain for disbursements onto a digital wallet on the Stellar network, and delivering USDC from Circle for the people in need. They then have various options to encash, so that's very important to us. So the usability of that cash, so it can be still consumed in fiat over the counter. Also, they have cash out options to transfer these funds directly onto their bank account. So to us, it has to be a solution not for tech's sake, but actually making sure that the person of concern is really at the center. We were hearing before on digital ID, it's about people. We're delivering delivering aid to the most vulnerable people in need. So it really needs to be able to be consumed there and then. And also going forward, that this solution actually offers options for inclusion, digital and economically as well, and also cross-border. So this solution also allows to be in cash, not just in Ukraine, but if people were on the move and going in different countries, they can also in cash in the neighboring countries. So to that extent, to us, this is a fully implemented use case, and we are now scaling up. So far we have delivered 2 million into Ukraine using this particular use case. So it offers us options to scale up in Latin America for the Venezuelan situation, also in Africa. So the key is really to have design options on the off-ramps. So that means that we actually can reach the financial ecosystem in each and every jurisdiction. And the fact that the UN is obviously not in the business of establishing a parallel ecosystem, so we want to make sure that it is actually integrated with that particular financial system of that country and neighboring countries as well.
Wow, fantastic. Each and every one of you are doing amazing things and so much impact. Bernhard, that being said, how important is trust when looking into humanitarian aid? What do you perceive as areas where trust can be enhanced with blockchain to improve processes and enhance also the public's willingness to participate in humanitarian aid projects?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because like all our systems in a way are already pre-blockchain, are designed in a way that you have accountability, that you have trust. There's like, segregation of duties, there's different reports, there's independent evaluation. Like there's lots of things that are being done without blockchain already. Now, the interesting question there is like from the angle, what are the problems we're trying to solve? Like we've been using the building blocks, the blockchain wallet for transferring cash as a kind of a virtual wallet to like people refugees in Jordan, refugees in Bangladesh. And there, I mean, it's like, and that use case is very specific, where it's like, there it's about like better transparency, better accountability, better collaboration also with other UN entities or NGOs. And in Ukraine, most recently, we've been doing this, using the same layer, if you want, as a coordination mechanism. So coordination, if you want, digitally, that allows us to actually look into like, okay, who is getting what, and like Just as a small nugget of like information, like so in 2022, in the first 3 months in Ukraine, when this was used by 18 different UN entities and NGOs, out of $337 million of coordinated aid, they were able to identify $35 million of potentially duplicate transactions that did not happen. So 180,000 people had received additional assistance because those duplicate transactions didn't happen. And that's just to show where, you know, we're talking about real impact. We're showing about, like, you know, what's collaboration and transparency, what that can actually bring. But then about trust, I think that's where the issue is. Like in a lot of the cash transfer scenarios, you know, we're doing things like fast, quick deployment. How can we get quick with financial service providers into doing that? But then, you know, in Afghanistan right now, how do you get, if there is a limitation of getting currency into a country, you have issues. If you have donors who say, well, I do not want money to end up for sure with a particular group in a particular country. Now, I believe that, you know, blockchain, Web3, you have the opportunity to provide full transparency or specific transparency as you wish and as you design the system. And I think that's an opportunity right there, including for financial inclusion for people who are currently unbanked. And just talking about, you know, trust, security, inclusion, like there's lots of different use cases, like whether it's Afghanistan, Rwanda, Peru, like, and just to spark people's ideas, like where you might say, what's the problem? Well, you know, if you are an undocumented migrant into a country and you have no ID, how do you open a bank account? Right, and that's when you start. Like, okay, how if you start working, how do you receive the money? What do you do with the money? Like, and this is where we need to think about, you know, beyond silos in terms of like building the future, helping people rebuild and like their lives when they're, you know, we want them to flourish, of course.
Absolutely, it's so important. And I'll move it to Carmen to build on some of Bernard's points. You mentioned that UNHCR launched last year, so it's new, a first of its kind integrated blockchain payment solution for displaced people impacted by the war in Ukraine. Could you tell us what lessons you have learned thus far, especially as they relate to trust?
Yes, so the key is that the data, so it's an end-to-end process. The more data is on the blockchain, the more seamless that is actually executed. I would say that one. The key is the more integrations you have upstream and downstream, or on-ramping and off-ramping, that makes the systems again in a way fragmented, because you need to have these integrations. So these are design choices that the organizations need to come to grips with. Also, our solution, we were talking about the unbanked. It can be withdrawn without having actually documentation. So it depends on the whole design, how you orchestrate the seamless delivery of that aid assistance, and how it can be, more importantly, obviously, how it can be encashed by different people who have bank accounts already, people who do not have bank accounts, and people who don't have papers. So from a financial regulatory perspective, you actually have these processes much more under control, KYC, anti-money laundering, also making sure liquidity. So as the treasurer, of course, making sure liquidity is actually in the country to be delivered. And at times there are also issues on foreign exchange, how we actually keep the value of that particular aid donation further than to be actually the aid assistance, and how we report back to our donors in a very transparent way, dollar by dollar. I would also say that this particular solution really allows us to deliver within minutes. So the speed is just unmatchable on traditional way of giving aid assistance. So we can basically deliver in 2 minutes if we actually have the funds available to us, and we know who is in need. So the speed, the transparency, the traceability, and also the direct reporting gives us so many more options how we actually also fundraise. Because any of you here now, if you were to know that we have systems like this in place that allow us really to trace dollar by dollar, really real time, you would be quite willing to give $100, I think, most of you, to actually, to send it across to the people in need, and you would be able to see in that transparency, yes, my money actually got there. So I think that is the real power, to really connect the outflows with the inflows, and then that connects us also to different financing models going forward on the donation side, if I can use that word. So donors are putting up money for the people in need, and there are various donor communities out there, and also the potential on financing structures to be set up. So impact financing, structural finance, to really get the aid assistance on a complete different rail, dare I say it.
So trust, transparency, leading to better donor engagement. Gladys, you've mentioned IFAD's TRACE program, and you also have Agro Web3 project. Given your experience, how can blockchain enable improved monitoring and evaluation of humanitarian projects and also engage donors?
Thank you, Diana. So through TRACE, that's what we are aiming to do, right? To be able to provide our investors with that information and the transparency needed so that they know where their money is going. Just in November last year, IFAD launched for the first time, a United Nations agency had the United Nations flag at the London Stock Exchange as we were launching the first UN design sustainable bonds. So that translates into more responsibility, even though we deliver each year impact assessments and we report on what is the impact that IFAD is delivering in the ground. Blockchain gives us opportunities to be more transparent, and for that, all those impact reports to actually be based on evidence and data. So that's one of the ways that we intend to use TRACE. But beyond TRACE, going to Agro Web3 and the partnership that we have now with the Inter-American Development Bank, the IDB and the World Bank have a long history of issuing bonds, social impact bonds and sustainability bonds, but also climate bonds. So based on and leveraging on the experience and the success of blockchain in Latin America, the fact that they already have use cases and delivering impact and results for people with, going from use cases for land titling to cash transfers to digital identity, our aim with Agro Web3 is to develop a single interoperable protocol by which all the digital wallets that will be in this digital public infrastructure that will be also developed in collaboration with governments will have access to this open, verifiable, universal system. So it's bringing the ISO that was already approved for LACchain and LACnet in Latin America to a whole new level, so that we can make it global and everybody can have access to this universal system. Four are the main objectives of Agro Web3. We aim to provide verifiable credentials, so digital identity. Number two is utility tokens, so tokens for organic, because for us proving sustainable agricultural practices is very, very important, but also for environmental sustainability. Then the other use that we envision for this is ownership tokens, because that land titling is very, very important for IFAD as we want to empower women and include them in not only in the financial system, but also to make sure that we work with governments, influence policymaking so that more land titling and land power is given to women. Women that have access to land and that own land contribute to increase agricultural production, and we have the data to back up this, and that data is helping us to influence policymaking, and first in Asia and now in Latin America. And then the fourth one is digital currencies, so working with not only fiat currency, but also e-wallets. So those are the four main objectives. And why is this important? Well, it is important, and the reason why I think that you're here is because through this, we are ensuring that we provide the mechanisms for financial inclusion, but also we give data ownership back to smallholders and indigenous people. So far, we have been quite unsuccessful at protecting the data rights of smallholders and indigenous people. So this could be really a way to do that. I think there is a Q&A at the end, but happy to address that. Very, very important as we talk about financing, and we are, we are all working to mobilize resources. It becomes increasingly important to work with the private sector and to work with all the ecosystem that is developing solutions for social impact. So these partnerships and this interaction with you is key. But looking forward, I'm here also to make a call for those partnerships to become part of Agro Web3 and help us to bring that scale from blockchain to the rest of the world. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Now, moving on to the importance of collaboration and aligning stakeholders. Bernhard, could you tell us, why do you think it's important to align stakeholders to collaborate toward a greater impact, especially as we touch upon major, global, and very complex issues?
So this is where, in reality, like when you think about it, even if you're the largest organization, company, whatever, government on the world, you're probably not going to solve all the problems by yourself alone, right? Now, I mean, this is kind of like I guess everybody will agree with that. Now, the interesting challenge here is now, when we're talking about collaboration, now why blockchain also has an opportunity, because it's built for collaboration. It's built for essentially like exchanging data, for a process of like how you actually working together, sharing things. Now, and I think in particular, like, and this has been like one of the biggest premises when we started building blocks in the first place, is like that we're saying it's not my blockchain, it's not your blockchain, it's a neutral blockchain network, and everybody can have like your own nodes that, like if you want to run nodes, that's perfect. Like you just do it, right? So now in collaboration, and I think this is something which sometimes when I'm talking to like startup founders and so on, one of the key aspects of a lot of the work that we've been doing is like working with communities, working with people on the ground and the governments or the finance authorities because like that's oftentimes the assumption, like, why is it so slow? Well, sometimes it pays off actually talking to the finance ministry and actually talking to the central bank before you're doing it, because you might be shut down after you developed everything, right? Now, and I think this is an element of, specifically in the area of work that we are in, is like dealing with smaller farmers, people who are vulnerable, and like you do not would want to put them at risk, right? This is where like collaboration is key. You want to bring in different people, the right stakeholders, co-development of solutions, and I think that's an element of. You might be the best, brainiest person ever on this planet. You need to talk to the people that are actually using it, right? And I think we probably have an agreement on that anyways.
Yes. On the other hand, other side of the coin, I'll take it to Carmen. What barriers do you see in fostering increased adoption of blockchain solutions for humanitarian applications, again, especially as it relates to bringing together stakeholders?
I think we are at the breaking point now. So these solutions, what we're talking about, what needs to be resolved actually has been resolved. So I think our use case has proven that. That's number one. And number two is that we have also built it in such a way that any UN agency, any NGO has access to this solution currently. So we have placed it at UNICC, that's the United Nations International Computing Center, where everyone has actually, or can have access to this solution. So we made it already, if you like, available in a public infrastructure kind of like structure. It's open source, so we also need to make sure, obviously, security, maintenance, support, everything is short, that it can work as it is working right now. Scalable right now, scalability is actually worldwide, ongoing. So I can only say that anyone here and anyone who wants to get in contact with us, they have access to these solutions, so they don't have to develop them themselves. And the idea is also that we would have like a center of excellence as well in Geneva to actually deal with this kind of problems, if you like, and how we go forward with it. and have the competency really at that center to be able to judge which solutions we're actually going to adopt. So this is an ongoing development as we have it right now, but we are ready to scale. So these solutions can really today replicate it in most jurisdictions, and all the regulatory approvals are there with the partners that we work with. So it's not something that we need to reinvent.
Excellent. Now, Gladys, as you are looking into collaborations and growth and scaling, what do you think blockchain can do for developments? What functionalities of blockchain have been most promising? And how, in specific, can this address concerns of corruption?
Thank you. So through truly decentralized systems, we can really provide that transparency that is needed in our operations. So being able to partner, so again, we're not developers, we are investors. So we're looking for partners that help us to develop these solutions and to be able to bring that level of transparency into our operations. But it's not only about transparency, and it's not only about delivering, reporting, and being more accountable with our investors, but it's also, and I talk about investors because our member countries, they invest in IFAD, but also through our bonds, since we place those bonds in capital markets, we need to report back. And those people, even though these are impact investments, they do want a return on investment. They do want accountability. So blockchain can help us to provide higher levels of accountability and transparency. But in addition to that, blockchain, for example, has proven that through the technology and through the large networks that we can build and the partnerships that we can build, the price, the cost of the credentials has gone down from, in the blockchain technology and the blockchain network I'm talking about, the market price of credentials has gone down from $12 to $180 per credential to only 30 to 50 cents per credential. So that translates more inclusion, right? More an increased ability for our agencies to be able to include our target groups into the system, and for them to benefit from these technologies, not to make them available only to those that have the financial resources to access them, or the technology or the knowledge to access them. The other thing that is crucial is also to be able to give asset ownership to smallholders and indigenous people. And that's not done only through the technology. That takes much more than blockchain. And it takes collaboration with governments. It takes collaboration also with civil society groups, so that we bring also that capacity building education of the groups that serve as for extension services for our target groups, but also to help our target groups to do the capacity training, the capacity building, so that they can use the technology. Very, very importantly, in terms of access and adoption of these technologies by target groups, by developing agro Web3, for example, and digital public infrastructures that are based on these universal protocols, we are saving also in capacity building and training, because instead of having to train people every time that we're bringing a new technology to the field, to these very marginalized areas, we are developing technologies and reducing the cost of capacity training, because we train them once and maybe we can retrain them, but we're not starting from zero every time that we start with a new vendor, with a new partner.
Well, great. We are approaching the end of our time, so I'll give each of you a few seconds to share any closing thoughts, key takeaways for the audience, if they could remember one thing and take that home.
I mean, if I can start, like I think one element in here is that a lot of times when people talk about like humanitarian responses, like, wow, how is that a fit for blockchain or for Web3? Now, it actually could be one of the best use cases where it actually shows the collaboration angle, more efficiency, higher transparency, like in that angle, but not just, right? Like it's also expanding into like developing country use cases like financial inclusion. Like, and I want to leave you with that thought where there's lots of opportunities to actually fix problems with technologies. It's not going to solve everything, but it can help.
Gladys.
In my case, I would say that for educated people like you and people that have an interest in social impact, each of the decisions that we make, from going to the supermarket and choosing products that are making a difference and that are using sustainable business practices, and blockchain can help there, because blockchain can say this product has been using sustainable business practices, or this product comes from a region or an area that has been certified for those sustainable practices for the planet and for human health, because it's also about human health. So each of us can make an educated decision of where our purchases and our investments go. When you go to your bank, when you make decisions about where is that your pension money is going, those decisions are important and can deliver tremendous impact. If each of us thinks about those decisions on a daily basis, then we can all deliver the impact that is needed so that we can achieve the SDGs, but also go beyond the Sustainable Development Goals, because 2030 is just around the corner.
And Carmen?
I would say time is to action right now. So right now, because we got the solutions in place, and it's just about to scale them up, and it's the willingness to collaborate and to bring these to much higher levels. As you might know, we need about 4 trillion to look at the SDGs, to accelerate and the fulfillment towards the SDGs. So there's so much more to do. So I feel that this is a moment in time where we need to really action right now and make that difference and collaborate. I think the solutions are there. It's just more to collaborate and work together, work much more together.
Well, thank you so much, all of you. It's been a great conversation, and the audience seemed to have questions. We don't have enough time, unfortunately, but you can approach the panelists one-on-one after, and thank you so much.